Compassion is this force. So the ancient instructions, how do we do this? The instructions are very precise. In the Buddhist traditions, and what we're finding in Tibet, number one, they're saying that to create the healing, to create the peace, to create the miracles, first, we must feel as if the miracles have already happened without judgment, without ego. And that's hard for the Western mind. So first we must do this, to feel as if our prayers have already been answered without judgment, without ego. Okay, now, we're going to switch gears. We're going to go to a different monastery. This is a monastery in Egypt, in the mountains of Egypt. By the way, I saw Italian mountains for the first time yesterday with beautiful new snow. Did you see them? Beautiful new snow yesterday? Very beautiful, very beautiful. Thank you, Savannah. This is the mountains of Egypt. And this is interesting because when you think of Egypt, you don't think of mountains. You think of desert and ocean, sea. But this is in the mountains of Egypt. There is a very old monastery. This monastery is at the very base of Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai of Exodus, the book of Exodus. This is called St. Catherine's Monastery. Have you been to St. Catherine's Monastery? Some of you have seen it? Okay, then you know what you're going to see here. On the outside, this monastery looks very old. This is a Coptic Christian monastery. The monks are Coptic Christians. They wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and begin their prayers. They go to sleep when the sun goes down. They have no electricity that they use. The electricity is there, but they don't use it. They burn oil for their light. They bake their bread in the sun. They pump their water from the wells every morning. It looks very primitive on the outside. Wait until you see the inside of this monastery. Would you like to see the inside? Okay, I was very surprised when we saw this. We walked, this is in the middle of the desert, nowhere in the desert. Look at the inside of this monastery. The first time I saw this, in the middle of the desert, I thought, how could they do that? And then I remembered the monastery has been there 1,500 years. They've had 1,500 years to decorate. So it's good. All right, it was in this monastery. I know that there is a hidden library in this monastery. Beautiful library. Part of it is open to the public, part of it is hidden. However, before you get to the monastery or to the library, you have to go past these rooms. Every monk who has ever lived in the monastery, their body remains in the monastery, so the energy of the monastery stays in one place. So for 1,500 years, every body of every monk that has died here, when the monk dies, they take the leg bones and put them in one room. They take the skulls and put that in another room. They take the rib cage and put it in another room. And they label them all so they can tell us where Brother John from 1604, where his skull is. They keep everything. They keep everything in this monastery, including the records of the ancient wisdom. So we asked the question, is there a secret library? And at first they said no, because they did not want us to see these rooms. The only way to get to the library is to walk past these rooms. We convinced them that we would like to see this library. They took us past these rooms, And we ended up in a room that looks like this. Now, can you see this door right here, the arch? Do you see the archway? And do you see this little window right here? There's a little window that's covered with brown paper. And this abbot right here, here's the abbot of the monastery. He's the man in the very back. I apologize, you can't see my pointer, but he's the man in the very center. I asked this abbot, can we look inside that room? And he said, no, it's not possible. And I said, please? And he said, we cannot. And I said, we've come a long way just to see this place. He said, okay. But he said, no photograph. No photograph. So I do not have a photograph. I want to tell you what's in this room. Now, this is an old monastery. They bake their bread in the sun. They use oil for the lamps. They have no electricity that they use. And we walked into that room, and all of a sudden, there is a room full of computers. Apple computer, Macintosh computer, IBM computer, scanners, satellite boxes. And I said, what are you doing in this room? And the monk became very serious. He said, we have been in this monastery 1,500 years. And we've been very fortunate because we have never been overrun by a foreign army. We've never been taken over. He said, but we think that this monastery will be destroyed in our lifetime. We think something will happen, that there will be a war in this part of the world, and this monastery will be destroyed. And he said, before that happens, we will scan every page of every one of our ancient texts onto the World Wide Web to preserve for future generations. And this is what they're doing, is they're recording all of the texts that are found in this library for future generations, putting it up onto the World Wide Web. So the question, what is in these texts that's so valuable? What is in these old texts that makes them so powerful? Well, some of the things that are in these texts are icons, pictures of Jesus. This icon was created within 300 years of the death of Jesus from the descriptions of people who lived with him and saw him. This may be one of the closest representations to Jesus that we actually have today. There are old, beautiful, illuminated manuscripts like this. Beautiful books, Coptic, Christian texts. Early Christian Bibles, only 100 or 200, 300 years after the time of Jesus. And this is why I brought you to this monastery. I want to share with you one of these texts. One of the texts that was edited from our Christian Bible is in this monastery. And we saw it, and you'll see a picture of it here. How many have heard of the lost Gospel of Thomas? The lost Gospel of Thomas. Some of you have heard of that text. Very, very powerful text. The lost Gospel of Thomas is powerful because it is believed to be the actual words of Jesus as he was teaching those around him how to use the power of human emotion in his life. Now, I'm going to share two of these images with you. We said earlier, to unleash the force of the divine matrix in our lives, first, we have to understand how it works. And the science tells us how it works. Secondly, we must speak the language that the divine matrix recognizes, and science cannot tell us that. That comes from our past, from our culture, from our history, from those who have learned and used this language for thousands of years. So this is what we're doing right now. We're learning what did Jesus and what did the great masters say about this language. Because it's the same whether you're talking Buddhist or Hindu or Christian, pre-Christian traditions, they're all telling us that there is a field of energy and that we have the language to use that field. This is an actual page out of the Gospel of Thomas. So we know that this ancient gospel actually existed. And you can see some of the letters. These are Greek letters. You can actually read some of, if you know Greek, you can see some of the Greek letters right here. In the Gospel of Thomas, two very important keys. This was written right around 300 years after the time of Jesus. In this Gospel, okay, so here's what we're doing. We've been in the Buddhist monasteries in Tibet, and they're telling us that that feeling is the prayer, one. Two, that we must feel as if our prayers have already been answered. Okay, and now we're in an Egyptian monastery with the texts that used to be our tradition before they were edited, and we're going to look at the instructions that tell us how to do that. Okay if we do that? Is that good? Okay. Gospel of Thomas. If you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, this is verse 106, translated from the Nag Hammadi Library. And if you do not have a copy, it's in our books, and you can go to any library and pick this up. Verse 106. Look at what the Lost Gospel of Thomas says. It says, when you make the two, thought and emotion, one. So the Gospel of Thomas is talking about thought and emotion. It's saying when you make your thought and your emotion one, look at what happens. You will say to the mountain, mountain, move away, and the mountain will move away. It's saying that when you can marry your thought and your emotion into one single potent force, that is when you have the power to speak to the world. The tumor that disappeared in the woman this morning, that is an example. When those practitioners had the thought of the woman being healed and the feeling and the emotions were all one, the mountain moved, the tumor disappeared. Okay, so this is one place. Now, secondly, when you make the two one, what are they talking about? What are the two? Let's go back to our image. The two, thought and emotion. When the two become one in our hearts, we create the feelings in our bodies. When thought and emotion become one, and you'll see how to do that in just a minute. Let's go back to the Gospel of Thomas, another verse. Now this is verse 48. It says almost the same thing. This was so important that it was recorded at least 3 different times in the same Gospel. Look at what this says. If the two make peace with each other in this one house. When Jesus is talking about the house or the temple, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? Precisely you. You are the house. You are the temple. If the two make peace with each other in this house, if thought and emotion become one, if they make peace with each other in this house, look what happens. They will say to the mountain, move away, and it will move away. He's telling us again, in a completely different verse, how powerful it is to marry thought and emotion. But they still haven't told us how. How do you do this? That's the next piece. In the early Christian Bible, your Bible today, there is a passage. How many have heard, ask and ye shall receive? Have you heard that before? Ask and you shall receive. Have you heard that? I know people that ask and ask and ask and nothing happens. Because the asking is not done with the voice. The asking is not done, please, please, bring this to my world. That's not asking. To ask, we must speak to the field, to the divine matrix, in the language that the field recognizes. And a language that's meaningful, the field doesn't recognize our voice, it recognizes the power of our heart. Remember this morning, our heart, we have a feeling, creates electrical waves, magnetic waves. That's the language the field recognizes. So when you create the feeling in your heart as if your prayer is already answered, that creates the electrical and the magnetic waves that bring that answer to you. And you're going to see this in just a moment. Ask and ye shall receive. While we still have this passage in our text, in the Bible that you have today, the King James Version, John 16, 23, 24, what you have is the condensed version. You have the edited version. The edited version looks like this. This is the edited version. Whatsoever ye ask the Father in my name, He will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Okay? Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. Okay, this is the edited version. This is so amazing to me because they took out the two sentences that tell us how to ask. In the 4th century, when the edits happened, they took those two sentences out. Would you like to see those two original sentences? Okay, we'll go back into the original Aramaic and we'll look at a new translation. This is the original Aramaic. It begins, it looks very similar. So this is the retranslated version with the missing pieces. All things that you ask straightly, directly from inside my name, you will be given. It says, so far you've not done this, because if we ask with our voice, we have not done this. Now here's the piece that was edited. Here is what was lost. Look at these two very powerful sentences. Ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by your answer. Be enveloped by what you desire, that your gladness be full. Look at what it's saying. It's not saying to speak a word, it's saying to be surrounded, to feel as if. If you are surrounded, you are feeling as if your answer has already happened. Be enveloped. If you want the perfect relationship in your life, if you want the healing in the body of your loved ones, feel the feeling of what it is like as if that has already happened. Be enveloped by what you desire, because that is when your thought and your emotion become one. You think the thought of the healing in your loved ones, and you feel the love of that thought. They become one, and that is the language that this field recognizes. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? You're going to see an example of this, another example here in just a moment. Ask without hidden motive. What does that mean? Hidden motive. Ask without judgment. This is precisely what the Buddhists are telling us. Ask without the judgment of the right or the wrong or the good or the bad. Ask without the ego. Ask from the heart. Is this meaningful to you? Is this helpful at all? Let me give you an example then. Because to be, if it says be surrounded, that means to feel as if. To feel as if. Now, if that sounds too religious, because it's from the Bible, we spoke this morning about Neville, the philosopher Neville, early in the 20th century. His book, The Power of Awareness. Look at what he says. It's the same thing. Neville says, you must make your future dream a present fact now by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled to come from the place that it's already happened. Now, this is what those practitioners did with that cancerous tumor. I want to just elaborate on this a little bit. When those practitioners healed the woman with her tumor this morning, they did not judge the cancer as wrong or bad or right or good. There was no judgment. They accept that tumor as a possibility, one of many possibilities, because in the quantum world all things are possible. So they didn't say, bad cancer, you must go away. Or we're going to operate on you, or we're going to use radiation on you. They didn't do that. They accepted the cancer as it was, without hidden motive, without judgment. And they said, now we're going to choose a new reality by feeling, assuming the feeling as if the woman is already healed. So what they did was they felt the feeling as if the woman was fully healed, fully enabled, fully capacitated, already happened. And the chant that they were using, wasa, wasa, loosely translates into the words, already done. Already done. And then when they got excited, they said, mate, 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 means now, now, now. Not a year from now, not a month from now, not 5 minutes from now. Now, in the quantum world, now. And her body responded. It must. Physical reality must respond to the language that it understands. So in the Buddhist traditions, they are telling us the quality of the feeling. And in the Judeo-Christian traditions, they are giving us the instructions to be surrounded, to be enveloped, how to create that feeling. And when you put those all together, it's something that happens in our hearts, not in our minds. Feeling as if the prayer is already answered with no judgment and no ego, and feeling from the result. Feeling from the result, as if it's already happened. Are there any martial artists here in the room? Karate experts? I studied martial arts when I was in my 20s and 30s, a little bit in my 40s and 50s. Have you seen martial artists when they demonstrate their focus by breaking a concrete block? Have you seen that? You've all seen that before, right? Okay, here's the secret. Here is the secret to breaking that block. When the martial artist is focused on that block, the very last thing that they are thinking is about their hand hitting the block. Because if they think about that, they know it will hurt. So they focus on what happens after their hand has passed through the block, as if it has already happened. They focus on a place below the block and feel the feeling as if their hand is already in that place. That is a metaphor, that is an equivalent for what we're doing with the power of emotion. Feeling as if the experience has already happened. When I left the corporations as an engineer, I moved into the high desert in the United States, a place called Nuevo Mexico, about 3,000 meters above sea level is where my home is. And there are indigenous people, native people in that area in the early 1990s. And it was during this time that this part of our country was experiencing the worst drought in over 100 years. No rain during this time. And a native friend of mine called me one day. And he said, Greg, would you like to come with me to a place, a very special place, where my ancestors have gone for many, many years to pray rain? So would you like to come with me to pray rain? Now, I like the language that he used, because he said this place is special because the skin between the worlds is very thin in this place. I like that language. So I met my friend, and we went to this place, and it was a circle of stones, kind of like this. Not this exact place, but very similar to this place. Now, I was not prepared for what I saw, because I believed I would see some dancing, some chanting, some singing, some Native American stuff. And that's not what happened at all. My friend sat down and took off his old shoes. With his naked feet, he stepped into the stone circle. He honored his past. He said the words, all of my ancestors, all of my ancestors, all of my ancestors are with me now. And then he closed his eyes and he held his hands in a prayer mudra like this. And he turned his back to me for about 20 seconds. And then he looked at me and he said, I'm hungry. Would you like to go get food? And I said, yes. But I thought you were going to pray for rain. And this is when he looked at me and he said, no. He said, if I pray for rain, rain could never happen. He said, because the moment you pray for something, you have just acknowledged it is not here now. If you say, dear God, please let there be rain. Please let there be healing in my loved ones. Please let there be peace in the world. Please let my soulmate come into my life. If you say that, what you're acknowledging is that it is not here now. You remember, the divine matrix is very literal. If you say, please let, the divine matrix says, okay, I will let and let and let, because there is no completion, there is no outcome. Does that make sense? So I asked my friend, his name was David. I asked my friend David, I said, if you did not pray for rain just now, what did you do when you closed your eyes? Such a beautiful story. He said, when I closed my eyes, I felt the feeling as if the rain has already happened. He said, I felt the feeling of what it feels like to feel my naked feet in the mud in my pueblo because there has been so much rain. He said, I smelled the smell of what it smells like when the rain falls off of the earthen pueblo walls in our village. And he said, I felt the feeling of what it feels like when I run through the fields of corn and the corn is so high because there's been so much rain. He said, and then I gave thanks of gratitude and appreciation for the rain that has already happened. So he didn't ask for the rain. Now this is interesting. When those practitioners worked on the woman with the cancerous tumor, they did not judge the tumor as right, wrong, good, or bad. They accepted it as it was, and they said, now we're going to make a new reality. When my friend David prayed rain, He did not judge the drought. He said, this drought is our medicine until now, and now we will create new medicine. This is key. Feeling as if it has already happened. Well, I'll tell you the rest of the story. We had lunch that day. By the time I got back onto my property that afternoon, something began to happen that had not happened for a long time. Big black clouds were coming in from the eastern mountains, and it began to rain that afternoon. And it rained that night. It rained the next morning. It rained into the afternoon. By the evening, it had rained so much and the ground was so dry that it began to flood. The roads were flooded. The crops were flooded. The cattle were stranded. And I called my friend David on the phone and I said, this is a mess. I said, what in the world is going on? And he said, that's the part of the prayer the ancestors could never really explain. It's like they could get the rain to begin, but they didn't know how to tell it how much to rain. Now, I cannot prove to you scientifically that David's prayer made that rain happen. I cannot prove scientifically that those practitioners made the tumor disappear. But we can say there's a high correlation, a very high correlation between when they feel the feelings and when the change happens. Okay, now there's more to this story. This is very interesting. Within the last month, I was on tour in Australia with a dear friend, Dr. Bruce Lipton. I know many of you know Bruce Lipton's work. I will meet him in Vienna tomorrow. And we are presenting in Vienna, in Zurich, in Frankfurt, in Hamburg over the next week. So if you have friends who are interested, please let them know. Can we bring the light down just a poquito? Just a little bit. It's a little washed out, isn't it? It needs just... That's good. That's good. Just a little bit. Thank you. So we were in Australia last month. While we were in Australia, something happened. Look at this. While we were in Australia, Prime Minister John Howard made an announcement. He said, the rivers of Australia have dried up. There is no water. It's all dust. This is a river. This is a riverbed right here. He said there is no water for crops, no water for cattle, no water for irrigation. Australia is in big, big trouble right now. This is the front page of the Australian newspaper. John Howard asked the nation to pray for rain. What happens if you pray for rain? Okay. But there's more to the story. Because Bruce Lipton and I were in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane doing these seminars. And there were people from the government in the audience. The next day, look at what happened. They declared a national rain day. But look at this. The idea was inspired by Greg Breyden's book, The Isaiah Effect, in response to Prime Minister John Howard calling on the Australians to pray for rain. Before we left Australia, something began to happen. And it started to rain, and it rained, and rained, and rained. And we were in Sydney, and it rained so much that the streets were flooded, and people were not prepared. But the good news is that it is raining in Australia. Now, I cannot say scientifically that those prayers made that rain happen. But I can say there's a high correlation between the time the prayers happened and when the rain occurred. And this is a connection that our ancestors have told us for hundreds and thousands of years, that we can speak to the elements of the earth. We can speak to our bodies. We can speak to the world around us to create peace. In the early 1980s, Israel and Lebanon were in the first Israeli-Lebanese war, the first war. Researchers from the United States performed an experiment in the Middle East. They trained individuals to feel the feeling as if peace has already happened. This was the very famous experiment. Orm, Johnson, Alexander, Davies, Chandler, Larimore were the authors of the experiment. The experiment was called the International Peace Project in the Middle East. The results of this experiment were so profound that they were published in the Journal of Conflict Resolution, Volume 32, 1988. So the reference is here if you'd like to see this for yourself. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. They trained individuals to go into the war-torn areas and feel the feeling as if peace has already happened. They did not judge the war. They did not judge the Israelis good or bad, or the Palestinians good or bad, or the Lebanese good or bad. There's no judgment, no ego. They simply went in and felt as if the peace has already happened. Just like David felt as if the rain has already happened. Just like the practitioners felt as if the woman is already healed. You see where we're going with this. And what happened was each time the practitioners performed this experience, peace happened in the Middle East. Terrorist activities stopped altogether. Crimes against people declined. Emergency hospital room visits declined. Automobile accidents declined. And when the people stopped their feelings, all of those statistics reversed. Everything went back to where it was. And the researchers said, well, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a holiday. Maybe it's a full moon. Maybe there are more people on the streets today than yesterday. So they did the experiment again and again and again, and every time the results were the same. In fact, they were able to determine how many people it takes to feel peace for peace to happen in that area. And here's what they found. Very small number. They said if you can get the square root of 1% of your population to feel peace, peace will happen. What does that number look like? Well, let me show you the math. These are very small numbers. The square root of 1% of the population. If you have a city of 1 million people, how many people are in Milan? Do we know? Approximately? 5 million? So, okay. Yeah, well. So, muchos personas, right? Okay, if you have a city of 1 million people, here's how the formula works. You take the number of people, total number of people, multiply by 1%, so 1 million times 0.01 gives you the number 10,000. Okay, now you take the square root of 10,000, 100 people. In a city of 1 million people, if there are 100 people that know the language of peace, they can begin that experience of peace. What does that mean for our planet? Let's look at our planet. Earth has a population a little over 6 billion people now, close to 6.5. If we do the same thing, 1% of 6 billion people is 60 million people. If you take the square root of 60 million people, the number is just under 8,000, 7,746 people. There are 1,000 people in this room. 7 rooms like this can change the world. And that's just the beginning. What happens if many, many people come together on the internet, on the World Wide Web? They coordinate and create that peace. Well, it has happened. It's been done. Princeton University organized the studies, and while the people are feeling peace, all that happens is peace. The problem is that people stop feeling peace and then walk away from the experiment and everything changes. So what I'd like to do is this. We're going to go into the last part of the program in just a few moments. Before we do that, we'll take our bathroom break. We come back, we're going to look at this a little bit more, and then we're going to have some experience in the room that helps us know what this feeling is all about. Okay, do you have an announcement you'd like to make? Okay, if we could do 15-minute bathroom break, I'll meet you back here 15 minutes. Thank you for a really, really wonderful session. Thank you. So this is a very fast day. We have a little bit more I'd like to share and have some experience here in the room. This morning we spoke about the Institute of Heart Math, their discoveries that every human heart, around the heart, is a field of energy 5 to 8 feet, 2 to 3 meters diameter. And this field of energy can be measured now in ways that make it very useful to us. So this field of energy, if you are within 2 to 3 meters of another person, you are sharing their heart field. So in this room, there are approximately 1,000 people in this room, 1,000 heart fields, but we are all sharing one field in this room. Yes? Does that make sense? Okay. So, the Institute of Heart Math has designed equipment that will help us to measure this field in the room. If we can detect the heart field of one person, because we are all linked, then we are all detecting one another's field. So we have a little experiment that I'd like to do this afternoon. The purpose of this experiment, it will help us to know what kind of feeling in our heart creates the effect in our world. And this is what I'd like to do for the rest of the afternoon. So let me explain a little bit about how this works. I have some equipment on the computer here. If I can measure you, or you, or you, or me, I'm measuring the entire room because all of the fields are linked together. Okay? Is that okay? So if we can measure either what is called HRV, as in Victor, HRV, heart rate variability. If we can measure heart rate variability, or we can measure pulse, transit time, or we can measure respiration. If we can measure any of those things, then we are able to tell what kind of signal our heart is sending to our brain. Every moment of every day, your heart is having a conversation with your brain. Every moment of every day, your heart is sending signals to your brain, telling your brain what kind of energy to send to your body. So if you are experiencing stress, that is one signal your heart sends to your brain, and your brain sends stress chemistry to your body. That's not good. But if your heart is experiencing compassion, joy, love, gratitude, appreciation, it's sending a different signal to your brain, telling your brain to give life to your body. So a positive conversation is life-affirming. A negative conversation is life-denying. Every moment of every day, there is a signal from your heart to your brain. So if we can measure pulse transit time, heart rate variability, or respiration, we can tell what kind of signal is going from our heart to our brain for the whole room. We can do this. So I'd like to do that. Are you okay? Would you like to try an experiment here and see? What kind of emotion is in this room right now? Would you like to do that? Okay, so here is the way this works. Here's our heart field right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift to a piece of software that will allow us to measure this field in the room. In every moment of every day, our nervous system, linked with the heart, is using what is called sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is okay? And parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. Stop and go. For every moment, if I stand here like this, and I blink my eyes like this, my heart had to speed up and slow down so I could blink my eyes. When I'm speaking, my heart speeds up and slows down so that I can speak. When I move my arm, my heart speeds up and slows down so I can move my arm. The sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system are allowing this to happen. We can measure this here on this screen. So what I'd like to do is measure this for the entire room. So, to do this experiment, what I'm going to ask, now, not yet, okay, but when I ask, I'm going to ask us all to connect with one another physically, to hold hands with one another in the whole room, so that everyone is holding hands with someone else, so that we have a circuit in this room, across the aisles. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to stand there, so you can connect to me. Okay? So let's do this. Let's all connect in this room, okay? Everyone should be holding hands with someone else so that we are all connected in one circuit. Yes, someone up here, because I'll have to be holding. Okay, this is good. That's okay, you can, well, right there. Right there. Okay, so the idea is that we are all connected in one circuit. In just a moment, we won't need the circuit. But for right now, we have this circuit, okay? Now, you're all connected to me. I am connected here to the machine. So we are all reading one reading together. So I'm going to begin this. Okay, can we bring the light down just a little bit, please? Okay, can you see the purple color? What is purple in Italian? Viola? Okay, viola. See the viola? And salmone? And how do you say yellow?
Giallo.
Giallo. Giallo here. Okay. Salmone, sympathetic nervous system. Viola, parasympathetic nervous system. Giallo, balance. It's the balance between. So the ideal reading that we're going to accept is a reading right in the center of the yellow. 0.01 is the reading that we're going, is the optimum reading. And what this is going to do, it's a real-time, a live reading in our group audience. We are no longer individuals. We are now a community. We are a community sharing a heart field. And we're measuring the conversation between our heart and our brain in this room when I begin the experiment. And you will see it change as we go through this experiment. So here. I'm going to begin, and it takes only a moment to calibrate. See, it's calibrating here. Okay. And when we begin, watch the bottom graph, and it will be a bar chart. You will see the bar chart. Let's see. Here. Okay, this is a real-time reading in this room. This is where we are right now. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's not good and bad, but it's a very good reading because the optimum reading is 0.01 in Giallo, and we're there, and you haven't even done anything special. Now we're going to learn a technique in just a moment. We'll learn a technique in just a moment. But watch, this is a real-time reading. Okay, now, I'm going to invite you to focus your attention in the center of your chest, in your heart, not your mind. Here is how to shift your attention. With your hand, touch your heart center. Touch it on your body. And when you do that, it will draw your attention from your mind into your heart. Just touch it momentarily, just for a moment. And it will draw your attention into your heart. Okay? Okay, and now you can hold hands again. Go ahead and hold hands. And from that place that you touched, if you can begin to feel in your heart feelings of what you would call gratitude and appreciation. Gratitude and appreciation. If you can feel gratitude and appreciation in your heart, and begin to breathe gratitude and appreciation from your heart center. Not your mind, but in your heart. Okay, and you can look at the screen, look at what's happening. All of our readings now are concentrated in the yellow. because we're becoming very balanced right now. These are good readings. We're becoming very balanced. Breathe into your heart center gratitude and appreciation. Take a deep breath in your heart. Feel the feeling of gratitude and appreciation. For anything. For your life, for your health, for your family, for this day, for our world, for your healing. Now look at this reading right now. Look at this. Look at this. Very good reading. See the balance in the jello? All right, now drop your hands and feel that feeling. Drop your hands and feel that feeling. And look at what happens. The field connects us without touching one another. We don't need to hold our hands because the field has connected our hearts. And it's already happened. You do not need to physically touch another person. The field has connected us right now. Beautiful readings. This tells us that your heart in this room is a very balanced heart room. And with that balance, we can create miracles. They may be happening right now. This is the place where miracles happen, where healings happen. Sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. This is the place where these things happen. So I'm going to invite you, close your eyes, breathe through your heart, feel gratitude and appreciation. This is the feeling that the Tibetan monks and the nuns teach in the monastery. This is the feeling in our heart. It is not a process in the mind. The mind may think about the experience of appreciation and gratitude, but the heart, your heart is what feels that experience. This is a very balanced room right now. Beautiful, beautiful readings. Okay, so you can open your eyes. That's one little experiment. Does that help to have the feeling? Does that help? This is what the monks and the nuns teach in the monasteries. You remember the abbot said to us, he said, feeling is the prayer. Do you remember that earlier? Feeling is the prayer. The monks and the nuns, they spend 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours in a day in the monastery creating the experiences that give them the feeling, and the feeling is the prayer. We are conditioned to live our lives in our mind and discount our feelings when the truth is that our greatest experience, our greatest power comes from the feelings of our heart. So I wanted you to have just a little experience here this afternoon so that you know the kind of feeling in your heart that creates those effects. And that's what we did. So thank you for our little experiment here. There is no contest. It was just a way, no right readings or wrong or good or bad readings. It was just a way for us to know the feeling in our hearts. Can we bring the lights down just a little bit, please? Okay. We began this morning with two false assumptions that science has asked us to believe. Number one, science asked us to believe that space is empty, that there is nothing between you and me, and now we know that's not true. They've asked us to believe that thought, feeling, emotion, belief have no effect on our bodies or our world. We know now that that is not true. These are false assumptions. our understanding of this changes everything. It changes everything about who we believe we are. I asked you this morning, who are you? A passive observer or a powerful creator? And now you have the information to answer this for yourself. You know that you are a powerful, powerful being, a powerful creator if you choose to use your power. If you choose to use your power. And it is a power based in your heart. The power of human emotion. Neville said to us, he said that we have an infinite power against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance. In other words, he says, we have an unlimited power that nothing in this world can touch. In the presence of this power, people live extended lifespans. Scientists today tell us we should be on this earth at least 120, 130, 140 years. What would it be like to live 140 years? Think how much we could get done. Would you like to live that long? Maybe. To live that long and be healthy and vital. You know, the biblical traditions say that we are in bodies that should last at least 900 years. The ancient Essenes say we should live in these bodies at least 900 years. They say, however, the first 100 years are the most difficult. Well, let me share with you why. They say that the first 100 years are the most difficult. And here's the reason why. Have you ever wondered why we are such powerful beings? Every cell in our body can reproduce. The cells in our heart can rebuild themselves. The cells in our brains can rebuild themselves. You are rebuilding yourself every moment of every day. Why would such a powerful being suddenly die after only 70 to 100 years? Have you ever wondered why? Why are we limited to a lifespan of maybe only 70 to 100 years? Why is that? The ancient Essenes say that those first 100 years are the most difficult because it takes us about 100 years to learn how to heal the hurt of living in this world. That it takes about 100 years to learn how to heal the pain of losing the things and the people and the places that we love the most. That 70 to 100 years appears to be how long your body and my body can sustain itself in the presence of unresolved hurt. The unresolved hurt of losing the people that we love and hold dear, and of seeing the world change so very, very quickly. They say that the secret to living beyond that 70 to 100 years is to find a way to reconcile, to resolve, to heal the hurt of the things that we lose in this life. And that it takes about 70 to 100 years maybe to do that. So I think that's what we're doing now. If we can love one another, and if we can love this world enough to allow one another our experience and know that we have this power within us. If we can love and allow, if we can love without the judgment and the ego and the attachment, if we can love fully and openly and completely, there's no reason for our bodies to stop working after only 70 to 100 years. And now scientists are telling us precisely the same thing. To unleash that force of long life, of the divine matrix in our lives, we must first understand how it works. And we took the time before lunch to do that. You now understand that this field of energy is everywhere, all of the time. That this field of energy has been here from the beginning, from the time of the Big Bang. That there is no empty space. That every place in the universe is pulsing with a living energy. You now know that. And you saw the experiments that show that the DNA of the human body is in communication with this field. The DNA speaks to the field. And you saw the experiments that show that the feelings and the beliefs in your heart create the waves, the standing waves that speak to the field. You now know these things. You don't have to suspect them. You've seen the experiments. So now we know how to speak the language that field recognizes. It's the power of human emotion. It's the power of human feeling. You felt that this morning when you saw the two baby girls. Isn't that an amazing picture? An amazing picture. I love this picture because it tells us who we really are. They are too young to have learned this from their parents. This is inherent in our being. We are beings who love, we nurture, we care. We are born to love in this world, and this shows precisely. They are only a few hours old. And they know this already. That's why I like this picture. That feeling, that is the feeling that reminds you of the power in your heart. It reminds you, as Neville said, that there is a power within you that nothing on this earth is stronger than. There's a power within you that allows you to transcend the laws of physics and biology as we know them today. Because what the experiments showed is that in the power of your emotion, in the power of the feeling that you have when you see this, you are no longer limited by the laws of biology and physics as we know those laws today. And that is a powerful place to be. Rumi said, "What strange beings we are. Sitting in hell at the bottom of the dark, we're afraid of our own immortality. Maybe we're afraid of our own power." Maybe we're afraid of our own power. Because if we really understood that within every human heart is the power to create in this universe in ways that we can only imagine, what would our world be like? I think we're about to find out. I think we're about to discover precisely that. Because the power to do so lives in every single one of you. The power to create, to heal, to love, to create peace in our world, peace in your family. To have the love and the nurturing that you choose and desire. That power is already in your heart. The secret is you must feel the feeling as if it has already happened, so that the divine matrix can give you what it is that your feeling has just identified. The feeling. The secret is that you must become in your lives the very things that you choose to experience in your world. You must feel it first so that the field can mirror it back. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? Does that make sense? Okay. We're very near the end of our program for today. I'm going to ask you some questions. I want to know, first of all, has this information been meaningful to you? Does it make sense to you? Yes or no? Thank you. That's only one question. Okay, question number 2. Is it meaningful in your life? Is it useful? Can you use this in your life? Okay. Question number 3. Can you see how, with the power of human emotion, you are no longer a victim of the things that happen in this world? Can you see how you are no longer victims of this world? Okay, if that is true, then you and I have done our work very well together today. Bring it down, please. There's our home. It's our home. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Milan. Thank you.